What's up? Welcome to Backend Stuff. I'm Jacob Blitzo, here to help you build tech for the future. Think about scalability, reliability, and cost. If you want to learn how to build scalable, production-ready APIs, hit that subscribe button now. Last video, we made an endpoint to create a new account. Now we need a way to authenticate an existing account. We need a sign-in endpoint that will return our JSON web token as well. So let's go ahead and open up our project, the Real Deal API. And we want to expand the lib directory and then the Real Deal API web. And we need to go into controllers and get our account controller back. We need to create a function for signing in with an existing account. It will take an email and a password and return our account object and JSON web token. We will need to use the authenticate function that we made when we set up our Guardian implementation. So we have the Guardian file here in the auth directory, Guardian. So we have to use this authenticate. Okay. And then so it'll either return our account if it's authenticated or an error with an unauthorized atom. All right. So underneath this create function where we create a new account and user object, let's go ahead and make a function. So def space sign underscore in. This is our sign in function that we can call with a sign in endpoint. And let's do an opening parentheses and pass in our connection object, comma, space, and then we need it to take a JSON, so percentage, then opening curly brace. And all we want now, we just need an email and the password. Quotation, email, close those quotations. And now we want to push this value into a variable, and you need to do equals greater than, and then the variable we're using, and we'll call it the same thing, email. So we're basically parsing the JSON request here. That's what is happening here. And then we're going to go ahead and parse hash underscore password space equals greater than, and we'll call this hash password as well. And then close off that curly brace and parentheses, and then open up the function with the do, and then the end should autocomplete. And the reason I keep this variable called hash password instead of just password, ideally from the front end, you're hashing the actual password as well before sending it over the endpoint. So we are receiving a hash password and then hashing it again. So it's all the same in the end, but that way there's no chance for like man in the middle attacks or anything like that to actually get a readable password unless, you know, the user themselves are, you know, they could have a keylogger or like there's a lot of other things, but it's just an extra layer of safety. So I always prefer the front end app to hash the password before the back end even gets it. Now we actually need to create an alias. Oh, we already have Guardian here, so we're good. We're going to come down here then and back into our sign in function, and we need a case statement. So it'll either be authenticated or not authenticated, right? So we're going to do case space guardian dot authenticate, and our authenticate function takes an email and a password. So hash underscore password, and then close those parentheses. And then let's open up our case statement with a do, and then the end auto completes there. All right, so our first case that will come through, if we go to our Guardian function, and we see our create token function, we go down here, it returns an OK, an account, and a token in a tuple. All right. So we are going to do our first case. It needs to pattern match to OK with an account object and a token. Close those curly braces and then dash greater than. And now we can transform our connection object. So con, and then do a pipe operator. And we want to do our put status, just like above here, the put status created, but we're going to do OK because we're not creating anything. We're just querying our account, right? And then we're making sure that our password matches our hash password on our database. So it's not created. So OK is perfect. And then we need another pipe operator, and we need to render our JSON response. So render, opening parentheses, and then quotations. And we'll call the same JSON response that we created in the last video. So account underscore token dot JSON, close off those quotation marks. And then comma, we want to pass in our account and token. And they need to be in a JSON object. So account colon account. And then we want to pass in our token colon, and then token is the variable name. And then close off those curly braces and parentheses. And this part is done. Our case, if it is authenticated, so if our password does match, we will return our account and our JSON web token. All right, so now the case, if it isn't, if our passwords don't match, if authentication fails, we get an error tuple back and a unauthorized atom for the message. And then close off those curly braces. So if this case matches, now we need to be able to handle errors in our responses. And this isn't the most straightforward thing to figure out if you're just dealing with JSON objects. So one thing that I like to do is I like to create an error response file, and I put all my common exceptions in there that can be raised. So, and then you can also just override the message with any custom messages that you want when you call that error response. Okay. So let's go ahead and create, we need a 401 unauthorized error response. So if we go to the auth directory and say file or new file, let's just call this, lowercase error underscore response.ex. And then inside of this, we want to make a def module. And then we want a .auth error response. And then we're going to call it exactly what our error response is. So we're going to do a unauthorized. So what I would normally do in this error response file is I would just have a bunch of modules inside of it with common errors like 401, 404 not found, and just so on. We're only going to worry about the 401 for now, but as we build the API, we'll add more error exceptions here, okay? So this is unauthorized. And now in this module, we want to do a def exception, okay? And this, if it'll auto-complete with a message, sure. What we're going to do is message, we can make a default message, and this is a quotation, and we'll just call it unauthorized. So if this is called and the message isn't overridden with a new string, it'll just be unauthorized. And then we can do a comma, and we can do the plug status here. So plug status is 401, and that's basically the status you'll get back in the response. And having the status numbers is super important. So we want a 401 there, and now we can save it. And let's show you how to use this. Let's go back to our account controller. So now if we are not authenticated, we get an error. We can raise. So this raises an exception, and we just created our exception. Oh, we need to add an alias. So I'm going to do curly brace up here, curly brace on the other side of Guardian, and we're going to auth.error response. There we go. And that is within the API web. Now that we have, okay, so now we can call our error response dot unauthorized. Okay. And then you can do a comma here, and now we can pass in a new message. So you can just do message colon, and then whatever you want it to say. So I'm going to say email or password incorrect, period. And then close off those quotations and then save it. All right. Okay, so we're almost ready to test our sign-in function. We got to head over to our router file, so router.ex. And in order to handle our error response as JSONs, we need to add plug.error handler at the top here. Do use plug.airHandler. All right, cool. And then what we need to do is add two private functions. Well, it's one function with two different pattern matching. One will handle a no route error, and then one will handle our exceptions that we raise. Like when we hit raise exception in the controller that we just did, it'll then make it a JSON response and it'll return a readable error. Def p handle underscore errors. And this is just, these functions need to be implemented with the plug.airHandler. So that's what we're doing here. And it takes a connection object, and then we have to pass in a JSON, a reason inside this. And then for this one, we're going to be using the phoenix.router.noRouteError struct. And that just has a message inside. All right, and then close off those curly braces and the parentheses. We should only have one parentheses, and then do, and then end. And now we just want to take our con object, pipe in. So we're going to use JSON here, which is going to cast everything to a JSON object. And then we're going to make a JSON inside this, and it's going to be errors with a message, and then close off those curly braces and parentheses, and then another pipe, and then we're going to call halt. So this will return our errors in JSON format, and the halt stops any downstream plugs from being executed after the error is called. And then we just have to create the same thing again, but we're not calling the no route struct, okay? So we're going to do a def p handle underscore errors, and then we'll pass in our connection object. And now we just do a JSON here, or an object with a reason. And then inside that is going to be another object with our message. And then just close off all those curly braces and parentheses. And then we just are going to do the same thing, con object, pipe, and then JSON. And then the object inside here is going to be errors, colon, the message sent through. And then we were going to call our halt again. So no downstream plugs can be executed after the error is thrown. And then all we have to do now, so our error responses are going to be set up, is create a new endpoint. So we're going to do, it's going to be a post again. And then we're going to use /, we're going to do accounts still. And then we're going to do sign underscore in, close those quotations, and then call our account controller, comma, and then our sign in function. So colon underscore sign in. And let's go ahead and delete the automatic alias that popped up, because those are already being implemented through the Real Deal API file right here. And now we're ready to test. So let's just make sure our Docker container for Postgres is running. It is. If it's not, press play. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and open up the terminal. And I'm going to say cd documents. We just have to cd into our project. And this is where mine is, Real Deal API. And then to spin up our local instance of our API, we just have to do mix space phx.server. And that will spin that up. And we are now running on localhost port 4000. I'm going to use hopscotch.io again for hitting our endpoint. Like I said last time, you can use Postman or whatever you prefer. You will need to either use Chrome or Firefox to use Hopscotch, and then make sure you install their plugin so you can hit the local host endpoints. So let's go ahead and pull up Hopscotch, and we're going to make a new, so make sure it's a post here, right? And then we're going to just do accounts / underscore sign in here. And then all we have to do, I'm kind of reusing what we did last time. So I apologize if You have to type more. All we need in our body is, so it needs to be application JSON, and we're just passing in an email and the hash password, okay? And then let's go ahead and hit send. And look at that. We got our 200 status. We got our email back and our account ID and our JSON web token. It's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and see if our error response works. Let's delete a couple characters from our password and hit send. And look at that. We get our custom message. Email or password is incorrect, and it is a 401 status. So that's pretty cool. We just set up our sign-in endpoint, and we get our JSON web token back. As always, if you need help or want to check out the solutions, check out the GitHub link in the description. And if you have more questions or just want to hang out and chat, join my Discord server, Backend Stuff. That link is in the description as well. If you want to learn how to build scalable, production-ready APIs, hit that subscribe button now. See you next time.